G'day punters, sorry about the noise, rain, hay. This video is all about the air compressor. I'm just going to rewire it, trim up some wiring, redo the pneumatics. Watch the video following, you'll see what happens. What I've been up to today, just tidying up some of this electrical. Just moved this angle iron or aluminium from there across to here. Used to have a gravity feed water tap hanging off that, and I've moved it across center, so I've got Anderson plug for the caravan, reversing camera for the caravan, and the trailer plug there now. Still haven't sorted out the reversing camera for the car there yet. Airbag stuff's going to move up there eventually when the canopy goes back on. The back's pretty well much done, but I reckon I've probably got, you can see all the conduits here. Two of them airbag stuff, but I reckon I could probably marry them up into just like one larger piece of split tube. Come down here. That's water pump. That's air horn solenoid. So they've got to stay the way they are. Though I could stick the wiring inside one of the split tubes. That's for the old air compressor. That's probably going to go. Air compressor, air compressor. That's going to go. And this side, I've got the main canopy feed wires there. I've got the fuse pulled on that already. There's only one bit of split tube that goes back. That's for blue wire to the trailer plug. That's for solar, which is in the back of the front of the canopy, so that stays. Found this wiring loom here, which is the negative for the canopy. That could probably run in the same as the positive, which is, let's see if we got it right into this split tube here. Don't know what that's for, so I'm gonna have to sort that out, find out what the hell it's for, tidy that up. So not too much this side, but a fair bit the other side over here. The other thing is I don't like where they've got the airbag hose come up. Rather keep it away from the wheel here. Rather run it up on the inside and run it across there, but I'll take the wheel off to do that. It's not a biggie. Once I've done that, I think it'd be right to put the canopy back on until it gets its welding done in late October. It's only early September at the moment, so a good month and probably half away before the canopy gets welded up. Directly after Fraser, once the canopy's taken off to get welded, I've got it booked into, I think it's Downish Street, rust proofing, to get everything treated up, all the rust touched up and treated. Love it. Just love rewiring, don't we? I'll talk more about that shortly. Solar input there. It's looking a little bit tidier. Just got to tie them up back up. Come back to that. That's just lights, Parker lights, all nice and tidy here. Lights. Can't tidy them up until the tray goes back on. Water pump, air horn. Can't do anything really about that until the tray goes back on. And a lot more tidier in here as well. Yeah, pulled out a fair bit. I've still got to chase some wiring back up into the cab from the engine bay. I'll show you what I mean. This is the air compressor, the old air compressor wiring. That's the original ARB loom. Two lots of wiring go back in through the firewall, so I've got to chase them. They'll probably go into the switch, auxiliary power and Parkers or something like that. This loom here, that's the main power supply for the canopy. It goes to a shunt, which is behind the battery here, and one goes up to main power, so it goes through a fuse, which is that one there. That's a compressor fuse, so that's redundant now as well. So what's happened is I've run two sets of wires, a positive and a negative wire, through a separate split tube. Then they've joined it back up down in here. So I'm going to strip out the earth wire and put it back in the big split tube. I get a bit tighter. Got to chase it up in here. Join it up in there somewhere. Tidy it up. Oh, that's it stripped out. So I mentioned these two looms here go to the canopy. Oh, one's solar and one's canopy main supply. I've tidied up the airbag man hoses as well. These loose zippy ties are just remind me the looms are going to be sorted out. Parking light, rear tail lights, water pump and air horn solenoid, reversing camera. I've already mentioned these airbag man hoses are going to come back up into the canopy. A lot neater now. Let's see, I've taken a fair bit out. Run some of the wires, as I've mentioned previously, in the larger split tubes, just to tidy it up so there's not so much split tubes running around the back anymore. Most of these split tubes are full of wires now. I could run a bigger split tube, I suppose, but that's not too untidy, I don't think. This is a little water separator I got. A few places wanted to sell me the auto draining ones, but I said I didn't want an auto draining one because it's going in my little air box here and I didn't want water in the bottom. So this is a manual one. Air pressure builds up and there's a little seal in the bottom of that little valve, so it pushes the valve down and seals it. Yeah, it may dribble when there's no air pressure, but otherwise I just push it up to drain it, which is more akin to what I want. A couple of little Nido fittings there, right angles. Just got to put a new fitting in there as well, because there'll be the inlet line. There's a little arrow there, so air passes that way, comes out there, and will go into the manifold. And this is a regulator. Didn't need a regulator, but that's the only way I could get it. Little handle for it, if I can find it. Just there. That just clips on. That's into the lock position. Adjust it, lock, take it right off. Take it right off. A locking ring to go into this bracket on the inside, which I've just mounted. Yeah, put the jerry can holder back on. Going over Fraser Island soon, so I need some fuel to go across there. But what are we up to today? I got a piece of wood holding up the bonnet as well. Got some time lapse, hopefully that'll work this time. Excess wire in there. You see that? Bit of split tube, taking out the auxiliary battery. So what am I doing? My BM1 that I had in the canopy died a while ago, so I've just taken out all the wiring. That's the shunt in there. Gonna take out the battery box. I'm trying to tidy up all this wire. My Red Arc BCDC 1225 isn't working at the moment, so I've got to check all the wiring on it as well. So really it's just an electrical day today, tidying up as much as I can. I'll just bring you up to date where we are. The time lapse camera's gone flat, but I've cleaned out a bit of shrubbery out of there. I've still got some zippy ties on here for stuff that I just need to finish off. I've checked out the wiring to the BCDC manager. It seems to be okay. There's nothing obvious like well, you've seen me, I've checked the fuses. There's two fuses, one in and one out. There's power getting into it, but nothing coming out at the moment, but the car's not running either. I've taken out the relay. That'd be my next thing to check, I think. Just gave the inside guard a little bit of a clean. Time to start putting it back together and see how we go. Oh, that's the passenger side finished. As I mentioned, oh, look at that. BCDC's got an AGM gel light flashing now. Be interesting to see if it's still working. driver's side, not looking forward to that. I've still got wiring left over from the old compressor I've got to pull out. There's about 2 looms there that go up into the dash. Yeah, engine noise. DC chargers making all the right sort of flashing things. It says it's in absorption mode, and in let me show you first of all. We've got this black wire here and a little red wire here. That goes to our battery monitor system. It's part of the PVS package. Well, it's a package if you pay for it. Just turn that noise off. It's showing me that main battery is 13.9, auxiliary is 13.4. Just before it was 14.4, so it was dropping down. So it appears to be working. A bit more wiring out now. I've got most of the wiring out from the old air compressor except for the switching wire here, which I'll need. That goes to the switch inside. And I need to pick up 2 of the wires off here to go to the canopy, to the new compressor. Just to carry on from yesterday where I pulled out all that wiring. This is the loom that I left hanging through the firewall into the engine bay, which I think is air compressor switch. I've had a look at the CKMA12 wiring on the internet, which is the old compressor, and this is the CKMAT twin 12 volt wiring. The difference is the CKMA12, the old one, the single stage compressor, had 4 wires coming off the compressor, and there was a relay in the circuit as well. I think in these twin ones the relay is part of the kit as well, part of the bundle. There's only really 2 power wires and 2 earth wires coming out, and then there's a switch from the cut-off solenoid which goes up to the isolation switch inside the dash. The wiring obviously is for the ARB switch, and I've swapped that out, so it's a little bit different, but all the color coding is the same. So what I'm really looking for in this one is the 2 wires that come off the compressor, which are going to be a black and a red. Those 2 there are connected to the switch inside. So I'm going to go have a look, pull the dash apart and see what we can find, and hopefully I won't find some redundant wiring in underneath the dash as well. Well, I found the loom, and before I talk about that a bit more, I did have a look underneath the dash for any superfluous wiring. I was particularly concerned about the old brake controller, but it looks like it's been removed. Already got rid of a bit of stuff. Going to get rid of all this. This is part of the air lockers switches. Don't need them, so I've just got to cut it out and make sure I connect up the right wires. That's the switch wire there. It goes down to this switch here, screen plug. I've already chased continuity black through to black and the loom inside that engine bay. But I'll sort out these wires first and I'll chase the rest. Oh, that's a bunch tidier. Bit of wiring on the green down there. Pretty satisfied. Yeah, that's the water separator I fitted. Fitted off a new bulkhead fitting up in there. I'll give you a close look at one of those shortly. So I've got the air coming in through the water separator up into the manifold, supplies the airbags and supplies air to the air tank. Comes out of the air tank splitter, one goes to the air horn solenoid and an air fitting on the outside. That's what it looks like on the inside there. That's new bulkhead fitting up there. I've connected up the airbags. Ran the air line from the airbox across the chassis brace in the centre where the airbags line comes, back up the chassis line up into this bulkhead fitting up there. There's one on the inside there, and that's it there. Air line runs up behind here up into the compressor. Next thing I've got to do, I've got to start the wiring, which I think should be pretty simple. I've checked my AWG or cross-section or diameter of wiring. That's 8mm, should be about 6mm diameter of copper in there, so it should be able to handle over 3 meters, 80 amps. That's what I'm betting. So I won't need to run another power cable just for the compressor. The ARB wiring loom, well, the wiring diagram shows two separate power supplies for the compressors, one for each side, 40 amp inline fuses. I've got some 40 amp fuses which I'm going to stick up on the board here. So I'm going to run two separate power supplies for the compressor per the ARB wiring diagram, and I can just hook up these two wires to the earth. There's another loom up the back here. There it is there. That's 4-pin, I think. I'll only use 2 of those. ARB supplier wiring loom. Some of it's for air lockers, I won't need that, so I just cut off those bits. For these gauges here, the Airbag Man gauges, I need a power and earth. Supply power to those gauges. It doesn't need to come from inside here, so it can come from anywhere, as long as it's running on accessory circuit, I suppose, while the car's running, or ignition circuit, so I'm not drawing power all the time. Information on like 12-volt systems and what size wiring you should use, depending on how much your current draw is and how long your run of wire is, can be a bit perplexing sometimes, but Drive have actually published it's copyrighted, so I'm not going to drop it in here. Drive have published like a chart which shows length of wire, current draw in amps, and you just cross-reference it, go down and across sort of thing, and it gives you a symbol. Check off the symbol and it tells you what size wire you need. Their chart talks about their diameter and cross-section is the actual copper, not the insulation, so just got to be wary of that. Just pulling the switching two-wire loom through. So having a bit of trouble. I pushed some fencing wire through, and what I did was I trimmed up the end, cut off the black, soldered a loop in the positive, and just crimped up the wire around that and pulled it through. That worked a treat. The other end of this two-wire loom needs to be spliced into this plug. So I'm going to cut the plug around here somewhere to leave a couple inches on it, trim it, put some heat shrink on, solder it together. Whatever that, red into purple, black into black. The other loom that it connects up to is red and black, so they'll be married up. Heat shrink, I've got another piece of heat shrink I'll go over the top of that as well, as soon as it cools down a bit. Where am I up to? Got that switching plug in. I haven't tidied up the loom yet because I've still got to do the main power stuff. I've put in my maxi fuses. I've put in my poles in the back here, and I've hooked up the positive and the negative. These two positive got to go the other side of the pole. I've got to run a short cable from positive to the positive pole. I've got to run a short cable from the negative to the negative up here, and I've got to run these two wires to negative behind here. So getting close. Well, it's got very dark here, so I apologise about the lighting, but I haven't done much today. Well, I haven't done much videoing. I finished off those 240 amp fuses for the compressor. I've tidied up the wiring, so that's all plugged in now, nice and neat. Got the fuses in there. Got some rubber grommets in the sheet metal, so the wiring goes through the rubber grommets to protect it from any braiding. Now that's switch wire. I'll show you what I've done with that. Here it is here. I haven't run it into the car yet, but what I've done is I put a Deutsch plug, a 2-pin Deutsch plug, to keep it waterproof. Why do I need to keep it waterproof? I've run it down here in that split tube, and there it is there. Now why have I put a Deutsch plug in there? So anytime I want to pull off the canopy, I don't have to cut the wire, I just undo the Deutsch plug. What about the power supply? Good question. I'm going to put Anderson plug in there. I'm going to mount it up on the canopy in here, so I can just unplug it. Airlines, well, they just unplug anyhow, just Nido fittings. So make it nice and easy. The only difficult ones are going to be the tail light ones, but I'm thinking about putting 5-pin Deutsch plugs in there as well. I've decided to run this switching wire back into the cab underneath, along the skirting where the kickboards are, in behind the dash, up into the switch inside. There's some video earlier on where I'm in the back of the dash, in the electrical video I've done. But you'll see this tomorrow anyhow. I'll have the dash apart and I'll be soldering that into where the switch wires are in the dash, just to make it a little bit neater. And the existing loom, which is from the switch back into the engine bay, I'll just remove that. When was the last time you cleaned the filter for the air intake, for the air ducting, you know, for the aircon and fan and stuff? I'll show you where that comes from shortly, after I get it clean. The filter comes from behind the glove box. To get the glove box out, this just swings down. You just need to squeeze the two ends in a bit, and it'll drop down and pull out. To get the filter out, you need to pull that bit of ducting, which is held in by one clip. Goes this way, goes up there, back up to the top left vent, and you push that little clip in. Now this filter thing is like a concertinaed, so you've got to be careful about how you put it in, how you take it out, because you can't just go in like that. It has to come in from underneath. Bit hard to do with one hand. I'll come back when I've got it in a little bit further. Here we go. Make sure you bend it down and nice and flat across the top. Just clips in. Now why have I got it apart? Running up the switch wiring for the air compressor. The other day you would have seen me in behind here cleaning up some of the wiring and playing around with the switch wires for the air compressor. That's where the loom was. I need black and red. That's the new loom I've run from the air compressor and the canopy, so I had to splice those in, bit of heat shrink and stuff. Those are redundant wires on this side of the plug, and that's what I've pulled out from behind the dash and from the firewall. This end was in the firewall. So you see I've got rid of a fair bit more wiring. So hopefully when I solder these up, put a fuse in the fuse holder, I'll have air. Yeah, I've tied up the PVS head unit to keep it out of the way too. Soldered up, heat shrink, cut the other wires, put some heat shrink around it. Just going to wrap some tape around it now as well, a little bit more protection. Alright, I've hooked up the fuse. You can hear that, there's a compressor going, must have an air leak somewhere. Power to the fridge, power to the lights, all cool. Just got to adjust this regulator to about 110 psi. It's about 7.7 kilograms a centimetre square. And I'm about heading towards 4 at the moment. The compressor should cut out before it gets there anyhow, because I think the pressure sensor's set at 110 pounds. They got an air leak somewhere. Over the years, or some years ago, I put some exhaust tape on here to provide some heat shielding from the exhaust to the airbag down in here. And it's got a bit frayed over the years, you might see in there. So while the canopy's off, good opportunity to replace that tape. The original tape came with these stainless steel ties. Oh, and they're pretty useless. I'll use them again anyhow, which is why I got these exhaust clamps. I got them from a, oh well, I got them from a truck supplier, like truck spare parts place. So I'm going to rip that tape off and replace it. This is the leftover tape from those years ago. Just soak it in water, because I think it's got some fiberglass or some crap in it. So anyhow, just remember the instructions to soak it in water. So that's the job for this morning, apart from doing those side steps, which you may have seen a bit of. Got the old tape off. I was a bit worried that I mightn't have enough left over, but looks right. And you can see the old tape's busted up into 4 bits really. Well, I don't know if there's any trick to doing this, but I keep the tape in a bucket of water and just wound it around. I've actually cut into 2 lengths, make it easier, because otherwise I'd be winding shitloads of bloody tape around the exhaust pipe. You can see that's where I've started. I've just come up to the exhaust pipe, that's where the bit's finished. I'm going to trim that off up here and start the next piece of exhaust tape there as well. Well, that's wrapped on. I'm pretty happy with that. Time to put the clamps on. See how much I was left with. So there's a fair bit of tape on there. Well, that's exhaust tape done. Always thinking about access to those clamp bolts as well. So I've got these nuts facing out, so they're accessible, and those ones facing down. One would think taking the side steps, the old side steps off, would be a pretty easy task. I mean, 8 bolts, easy peasy. But there was elastic all the way along here, holding it on. So I got a little crowbar thing, jimmy it off, and you can see I've touched up the paint a bit. Not too worried about it. Used the steel wheel on my electric drill to get the elastic off. Just giving it a wash. Put another coat of elastic down and put the new side step on. No, I'm not going to show you the new side step. That's all part of the big reveal.